But one of them was the first one was about this 5 minute video I did explaining my opinion on the hardest jiu-jitsu belt ranking between white and purple
Hmm.
from my perspective. And basically, we can go ahead and address that one as soon as I can figure out
First one,
where the hell did he go? Hold
do you
on, give me a
still
minute.
think the white belt is the hardest belt to get through?
So how
I
do you want to answer these questions? Do you want us to just like,
round table it.
Um, well, if you want to answer it, we can answer it. We can do it go individually, and then we can when we're done, we can go to the next one. There's only four. So
Well,
um
I guess it depends on what you think of as hard. Is it the hard? Are they thinking is it the hardest physically, or is it the hardest sort of mentally? I think that it. To be honest, I actually think the blue belt is the hardest to get through. I think white belt you have a lot of enthusiasm. It's something new. It's great. You know you're learning new things. It's hard because it's like it's new, obviously. So you have people quit because it's just not. They just don't feel like they get in anywhere. And I think most people who quit at white belt either they go into it they go into jujitsu with the sort of wrong mentality, or go into it thinking that they're going to get something else out of it that they don't, or they are super focused on getting promoted. And I think that's why a lot of white belts quit. But I think if you stick through it, you end up a blue belt. And I think that's probably the hardest because it's kind of like, that enthusiasm lags. And then you're also expected to know a bit more. And then there's also like mixing with imposter syndrome and a bunch of other stuff, and then just life gets in the way. It just seems like for white belt you put in so much effort, and then when you get to blue belt you're just kind of spent, and that effort is just you're just kind of like, well, I put in all this effort to get to promoted, now what? you know so I think blue belt is probably the hardest to get through.
yeah. I will say, I mean, there's this thing called the blue belt blues that
Mm-hmm.
exists because it's like a lot of people feel like they're stuck in that stage for like ever. But I don't know. I like what you said about it depends on your mentality going into it, and I totally agree with that. If you go into it knowing like I'm a beginner right now and I have so much to learn, I know nothing. And you stay humble in that way, and you just like, I just want to absorb as much as I can. Um, then, being that white belt, you are filled with enthusiasm and willingness to learn. And I hear what you're saying about like by the end of that, when you become blue belt, sorry, did I say blue belt before? I meant to say white belt. When you're white
Mm-hmm.
belt, you're filled with enthusiasm. And then by the time you get to blue belt, you're kind of burnt out,
Yeah.
and then, that's when you slip into the blue belt blues and you feel like you're not getting better, you kind of stagnate. I mean, right, there's like a learning curve to everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um in At the beginning, the learning curve is like super steep, because you're gaining all these skills. Um, you're training a lot, and this is with anything that you start new. Could be a language too. This happens with learning languages as well. The learning curve at the beginning is very steep, and then eventually it plateaus. That's just naturally what happens, and it plateaus for a while, and then you start feeling like you're not progressing any, you're always like doing the same mistakes, you're always getting into the same bad positions. And then eventually like it starts going up again, right? The curve goes uphill again. But you don't know when that's going to happen. It's different for everybody. It depends on how often you train. but I feel like that's the blue belt stage, is where you're kind of like you get that like huge increase of in your skill set when you're white belt, and then you kind of plateau and you feel like you're not progressing any. And a lot of people, I think, they also quit at blue belt, you know, because they're, as you said, like life gets in the way. You feel like you're stagnant, you're not progressing any, you feel burnt out. And so, you know, you're just like, it's not really worth it anymore, you know. Well, to answer the question directly, which if white belt is the hardest belt, um, I mean, I gotta think it is, because you're getting your ass kicked all the time, man. It's like, you know, you like, because you know nothing, you're getting your butt kicked every day. Even if somebody's going easy on you, you're still getting your butt whooped. And it's like just survival for the first like 6 months to a year, depending on like your training frequency. But at least for me, you know, yeah, I'm a very competitive person. I don't like losing. And so that was really hard for me, you know, not having the skills to be able to win, you know, even if I'm just training, you know, I just want to win. Um, it's it's hard. Like you just feel like, ugh, you know, nothing, you know. And yeah, and sometimes, you know, you don't even know how to approach um a live sparring session.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, what do I even start with? What do I even do? And it can be like confusing. And I've seen a lot of like, especially with females, a lot of female white belts, they're not even comfortable trying to spar because they're like, I just want to know more first. And
Yeah, I think,
yeah.
you know, I anytime that I'm paired up with a white belt and I know it's their first time, I definitely, you know, I'm rolling with them, I definitely, because a lot of times they say, you know, oh, I don't know what to do now, so I stop the roll and I you know, reverse the positions and I show them, okay, you know, this is how I could get out of this, or I could do this sort of sweep, that sort of thing. I don't just continue rolling and smashing them, because you know they're not going to learn anything that way.
Yeah,
But
no, I totally agree.
yeah, and I think that
But then there's some people who just don't want to even try because they're like, I don't
yeah,
know enough. I don't even want to try. And it's like, well, part of
that's true.
the learning process is experimentation. So you have to try, you know, at least like get the process started, get the roll started, and do something, try something, you know.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, a lot of white belts come in not understanding that part of being a white belt is getting your ass kicked, right? And not really, you can't really appreciate that until you're on the mat and you're actually rolling. You know, so a lot of times I tell white belts, you know, you're basically, your job as a white belt is to learn defense. And once you're comfortable with people, you're comfortable with being in uncomfortable situations and you learn some defense, then you can start relaxing. You know, that gives you like maybe a second or two to think, okay, what do I do next? So I think as a white belt, it's just, yeah, I think as a white belt, it's hard because a lot of information is coming at you. And especially if you don't go into it with sort of the right mentality, you go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to go in and beat up everybody, or I'm going to be the best, or I'm going to, you know,
You're like, I hate losing.
Yeah,
Like, you're gonna have to get used to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do MMA or whatever, and I'm just gonna smash everyone. That's the wrong mentality, because you will quit really quickly if you have that mentality. You know, you
Or
gotta.
it'll just be, I mean, you might not necessarily quit. I mean, I kind of had the mentality like I don't like losing and I don't like being overpowered, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But you know, I stuck with it. I always just felt like, okay, I just need to learn this, or I need to learn that, or I need to move faster, or whatever, you know, like I just need to see what am I doing wrong so that I can get better. I don't think it's always an cause for quitting for people. Some people are motivated, you know, when they're losing and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, this is what I'm doing wrong. I just have to, you know, it's like it's some people, you know, even like higher belts, they think when you lose, that's what motivates you the most to get better is to, is to lose. If you're winning all the time, then it's like after a while, it's like
it's boring. I mean, like one of my professors said, he told the kids, everybody loses in jiu-jitsu. And that's like one of the truest things ever said about jiu-jitsu is everybody loses in jiu-jitsu. So when you look at it from that perspective and you sort of take that into mind, then you understand that losing isn't such a bad thing. It just means that there's stuff that you need to work on. It's really
more things to learn, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and it's really helpful watching the kids' classes with a good instructor, a good kids instructor, because they're telling kids really important information that I think also adults need to listen to. Like, everyone loses. You can't win all the time. So, take it as a learning, a teachable moment. And I think coming into jiu-jitsu, any white belt coming into jiu-jitsu, I think should look at it almost sort of like a course. It's like a curriculum. You're learning. You're there to learn, not there to like, destroy people or smash people or whatever. You're there to learn. It's like, you go to school, you have to go to class. You don't show up to class, you're not going to get a good grade on, on your finals or whatever. Or you're not paying attention to class, you're not going to get whatever the instructor is teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to look at it from the perspective of it's school.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, guys.
Yeah, all the cliches. Just really listen to all those cliches. Black belts and white belts that never quit. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I think I answered this in the 5-minute video from more of a personal perspective. So for me, white belt was the hardest because most people are learning a new skill. Most people are not used to losing.
Mm.
And if you're an overweight, heavily asthmatic desk worker, doing something that is basically a full body workout is also going to be extremely difficult until you get back into shape.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of guys and gals in that boat who quit because they just physically couldn't hack it.
Yeah.
Given some time, given some time to get back into shape, I'm sure that most of them, if not at least half, would have stuck with it. But the physical aspect of it just bears down on you mentally. It's hard to see all these people. Even some are at around your age in your same-ish profession, but they're just in better physical shape.
Yeah.
You see all these people doing this stuff basically from the beginning, just like you, and you just can't do it. Like that's a total just it's very demoralizing.
I mean, I've seen people who I believe have quit because they just physically couldn't do it, and it sucks. But I think that as a higher belt, it's sort of my responsibility to kind of take them under the wing, and because I want people to enjoy jiu-jitsu as much as I do, so just kind of take them under the wing, and if it means rolling slower with them, roll slower with them, or if it means that every time they come to class, you pair up with them, just kind of like take them under your wing, and eventually they'll get there if they're motivated enough and if they kind of see the value out of it.
Yeah. When I started, like I couldn't do anything. Like 30 seconds in, I was dead.
Yeah.
And it was just fine. This is all I could do today. I'll come back next time. And that 30 seconds became 35, and then a minute, and then an hour. And then, it just went up from there. But just keeping keeping consistent was just grueling.
Yeah.
It got a lot better when I became blue belt, but that just added a whole different set of issues, like people wanting to take my head off, even though a week earlier, before I got the belt, we were just fine.
Yeah.
That happens at every promotion, right? Everyone guns for you.
Yes.
Well, now that you're a new belt, let me test my skill against you. Let me see how much of a if I am worthy of this belt. I feel like that's sometimes why people do that. They want to
And then
see
lower,
how worthy they are of that belt
yeah,
level.
lower belts are like, oh, I tapped a purple belt or I tapped a brown belt. Yeah, I'm the best.
Every single time I got a belt promotion, it was like just this giant target just went on my back. Everybody just
Yep.
goes harder. It's like,
Yeah.
That's pretty much, yeah, I think par for the course.
yeah.